But it's also true that much of history is indisputably factual, because we have artifacts and coins and birth records and archaeology, and somebody in Mesopotamia kept a record of how much grain they ate. It's not all up in the air to change or delete or make up based on what makes you feel better today. Portland Public Schools has a plan now to teach kids that the idea of gender being mainly binary was brought here by white colonizers. The curriculum guide says, when the United States was colonized by white settlers, their views around gender were forced upon the people already living here. Not even Star Trek would try that.
And let's cut to the chase about something that's been driving people nuts lately. History. And no, I'm not talking about that snooze fest of a class you barely stayed awake through in high school. I mean the way, here in 2025, we're being told to treat history like some fan fiction you can edit whenever it feels convenient. Newsflash. History doesn't work that way, and here's the kicker. Portland Public Schools are actually pushing a curriculum that teaches kids the idea of gender being binary, male and female, was supposedly forced here by white colonizers. Seriously, in their version, gender was only binary because those evil settlers showed up and shoved their beliefs on native communities. Excuse me, what? Even Star Trek wouldn't try to float that storyline. Picture Captain Kirk stepping off the Enterprise shouting, "Spock, hurry, segregate the bathrooms before the aliens get confused." Absurd, right? But this nonsense isn't just laughable, it's dangerous. Because when you start rewriting history, you're not just making silly claims, you're tearing at the very backbone of society. You're taking the stories, lessons, and foundations of a nation and twisting them into something that just feels better today. And that isn't just lazy, it's flat out dishonest. Now, let's be fair, conservatives have been called out for whitewashing history too. And that deserves criticism. But liberals, they're hardly saints here. They've turned history into a tool, not to learn from, but to control the present. And their new favorite weapon, something called presentism, which is basically judging everyone in the past by today's moral standards.
You can get creative with a novel, a TV show, or a movie, but history books, that's not supposed to be fan fiction. How we teach our kids history has become a big controversy these days, with liberals accusing conservatives of wanting to whitewash the past, and sometimes that's true. Sometimes they do. But plenty of liberals also want to abuse history to control the present. And last month, a scholar named James Sweet caught hell for calling them out for doing just that. He criticized a phenomenon known as presentism, which means judging everyone in the past by the standards of the present. It's the belief that people who lived 100 or 500 or 1,000 years ago really should have known better.
You really should have known better, right? Just think about how absurd that sounds. It's like blaming your 5th grade self for not having the wisdom you've gained as an adult. Should we cancel the 10-year-old version of you because you believed sea monkeys were actual pets? Or because you showed up to middle school dances wearing those painfully awkward outfits? Obviously.
Which is so stupid. It's like getting mad at yourself for not knowing what you know now when you were 10. Stupid me, spending all that time raising sea monkeys and playing with slot cars and jerking off to a Playboy in the barn. Who doesn't have moments from your past that make you cringe? Who hasn't said, I can't believe I said that. I can't believe I wore that. I can't believe I thought that. I can't believe I did that. You ate dirt. You wanted to be a Ghostbuster. You shoplifted gum. You tried to be a white breakdancer. You
not, but that's exactly what the woke crowd is trying to pull with George Washington, Columbus, and basically anyone unlucky enough to have lived before Twitter started handing out moral lectures. And here's the twisted part. If it weren't so sad, it'd almost be funny. These same people wagging their fingers at the past act like they've lived flawless, saintly lives. The left paints itself as the holiest of the holy, Twitter's own guardians of virtue, who've never said the wrong word, never had a bad thought, never messed up, not even once. And because of this imagined perfection, they think they've earned the right to judge not just today, but yesterday, last century, and every era before. But here's the reality. By today's standards, people in the past were terrible, and it wasn't just Europeans or Americans. Slavery, for example, was everywhere. Egyptians, Greeks, Romans, Arabs, even Africans selling other Africans. It was the rule, not the outlier. Acting like America invented slavery in 1619 is as clueless as claiming pizza was invented in 2005 just because that's the year you discovered Domino's. It's not just wrong, it's historically illiterate. And
yes, because we hadn't then grown into the persons we would become. And humanity writ large is just the collective version of that. Did Columbus commit atrocities? Of course. But people back then were generally atrocious. Everybody who could afford one had a slave, including people of color. The way people talk about slavery these days, you'd think it was a uniquely American thing that we invented in 1619. But slavery throughout history has been the rule, not the exception. The Sumerians, the Egyptians, the Greeks, Romans, the Arabs, British, the early Americans, all the way up through R. Kelly.
And still, the woke outrage machine keeps America's past sins as their favorite drum to beat. Just scroll through social media. You'll see the same script on loop. America is evil. America was built on slavery. America can never be redeemed. But here's where the hypocrisy comes screaming through. These very same voices mourning America's history are the ones applauding extremist groups like Hamas. Groups that here in 2025 openly call for violence and terror. So let's get this straight. America is beyond forgiveness for things that happened centuries ago. But violent extremists in the present deserve compassion. That's not morality, that's hypocrisy dressed up in hashtags. And let's be honest, cruelty isn't some uniquely white or American trait, it's a human trait. History shows over and over that when humans gain power, they often abuse it. That's not an excuse, it's just reality. And twisting that reality to fit a woke narrative isn't just dishonest, it's dangerous.
Who do you think gathered the slaves from the interior of Africa to sell to slave traders? Africans, who also kept their own slaves. We're a species prone to making others of our species our bitch. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Humans are not good people. And the capacity for cruelty is a human thing, not a white thing. That's the truth, even though it doesn't jibe with the current narrative.
Here's the thing about presentism, it's pure arrogance. It's like stepping into a smug little time machine where you're always the hero. From your cozy air-conditioned apartment with Wi-Fi, DoorDash, and AI at your beck and call, you get to look back at people from centuries ago, people without modern science, medicine, or even indoor plumbing, and sneer, wow, what monsters. I'd have done so much better. No, you wouldn't have. If you were alive back then, you'd be stuck in the same world, making the same choices, with the same limited understanding. And if George Washington were alive today, he'd have modern knowledge too. He'd probably be tweeting support for his gay friends while sipping a caramel latte.
In today's world, when truth conflicts with narrative, it's the truth that has to apologize. Being woke is like a magic moral time machine where you judge everybody against what you imagine you would have done in 1066, and you always win. Presentism. Yeah, this professor is right. It's just a way to congratulate yourself about being better than George Washington because you have a gay friend and he didn't. But if he was alive today, he would too. And if you weren't alive, if you were alive then, you wouldn't.
Context is everything. Without it, history loses all meaning. But woke culture isn't content with just rewriting the past. They're setting their sights on the future by indoctrinating kids. Imagine a classroom where children are taught that gender is nothing more than a feeling, that it's fluid, and that they can change it whenever they want. In some cases, they're even pushed toward transitioning without their parents ever knowing. That's not education, it's dangerous social experimentation on children, and the cost is enormous, not just for the kids caught in the middle, but for the society that will eventually be left to deal with the